Welcome to the podcast about venture capital, where investors and founders alike can learn how VCs make decisions and reach conviction. Your host is Nick Moran, and this is The Full Ratchet.
Welcome to another special release of Investor Stories. On this installment, the experts discuss a startup that they did not invest in, why they passed, and if there was a key learning that now informs their approach. Here's the segment called Why I Passed.
On today's special segment, we have Samara Mejia Hernandez of Chingona Ventures. Samara, can you tell us a story about a good or a bad pass, a story about a startup that you passed on?
The anti-portfolio. There was one, but now I don't know if they're doing well. But I think they're doing well. I thought they were at almost billion-dollar status, and then I don't know how well they're doing anymore. So there was a company here in Chicago that had reached out to me, credible founder. I uniquely understood their background, building a fintech company, and they had one small location when I first talked to them. And their pitch was kind of all over the place, but the founder was just hungry and just motivated. And you could tell it would stop at nothing to get their customers signed up. And so we did a lot of work with them on their unit economic potential, because they didn't have a lot, how to tell their story, how to break it down. And so we were super close to getting to yes. And then this was the first quarter of 2020. So then obviously you guys know what happened. But the week we were looking at them, the world shut down basically. And then the following week they wanted basically to close. And we were at a point where we're like, we don't even know how our portfolio is doing. We don't even know, are they going to need our capital, right? Because how are we going to think about making new investments? And this is, at that point, I had been in venture for 6 years, I think it was. And I wasn't new to venture. I was new to my fund. It was a smaller fund, so I didn't have a lot for follow-on capital. And so I pulled back on new investments for that quarter, and I just made follow-on investments. And one of the things I learned was I should have doubled down on new investments. There was a lot of opportunity, and I should have invested in this company who had grown very, very quickly. And even during the pandemic, they accelerated their growth. And one of the learnings that for me was in markets kind of like we're entering today, this is a great time to be opportunistic. Obviously at Goldman Sachs when I looked at the financial markets and when they were down, that was the time to buy. And that was my training for many years, but I just didn't do it in this environment. And so there's a lot of confidence that you need to build as an investor. There's a lot of confidence you need to build as a GP of your own fund, especially when you don't have a partner that you can just talk through the deals with. I obviously talk to industry people, but everyone's going to have their own opinion on what they're going to do, like in this market, right? People are going to say, oh, I'm pulling back. Or on Twitter, they're saying they're doubling down, but they're actually pulling back. Or they're going to say, oh, don't invest in consumer fintechs. And people say, do invest in consumer fintechs. So part of the muscle that I like to encourage a lot of people that we work with and the younger people that I talk to in venture capital is building that confidence and conviction, especially when you're going super early, when many times we're the first yes that a lot of founders get. And that's in an area where maybe a lot of VCs have said no to, and you have to build conviction over that. You have to build conviction in your own thesis and strategy to be able to convince partners if you're a junior partner or your other partners if you're part of a larger firm. And for me, that was a moment where I was like, oh, okay, I wish I could have invested, and I congratulate the founder all the time. They've done extremely well. And as you know, VC investors, we have a ton of these in our portfolio. And it's just, for me, how I get through that is with the data I have today, this is the reason why we're passing. And we keep track of everything. We have notes on everything. If we do more than one meeting, we have one-pagers and investment memos. So I can tell you exactly why we passed, but it still burns.
When you're a rebel and you're doing contrarian investments in the first place, in the middle of the country where other people don't want to look, there's an extent to how much you can be a rebel. And sometimes, pushing the boundaries, it's difficult.
Yeah.
On today's special segment, we have Julie Wroblewski. Julie, can you tell us the story about a startup that you passed on, either a good or a bad pass?
Yes, I have passed on several consumer products that were great products without a distribution strategy around them to scale. And I think, you can have a great product, but if you aren't thinking about how you're going to actually get that to customers into a distribution channel that's going to get you to the level of scale that you need to create a big venture opportunity, it's not going to work. So I can think about several consumer examples that were things that just couldn't get there on distribution.
On today's special segment, we have Brad Burnham of Union Square Ventures. Brad, can you tell us a story about a good or a bad pass, a story about a startup that you passed on?
Well, so arguably passing on Uber at sort of an $80 million valuation and Airbnb at, a similar valuation are pretty bad passes. And I think the Airbnb story is maybe the most interesting and the most instructive. The lesson that I think we all learned from that is that we are not the customer. I mean, when Airbnb was originally pitched, it was very early, and they were literally proposing air mattresses. And, I had gotten to a point in my life where I didn't think I was going to be spending a lot of time on an air mattress. And I'd made the fatal mistake of thinking that I was the customer. Also, I suppose we misunderstood, thinking that the original idea of, actually being able to sleep on people's floors was ultimately what it was going to become, instead of recognizing that, oh, wait a minute, this is changing the way people travel. It's not going to end up being, sleeping on an air mattress on somebody's floor, but it's going to end up being a network of opportunities to participate in local communities in ways that hotels don't give you. We didn't see that. But again, the real lesson was venture capitalists are a very, very tiny market, and thinking that you are the customer can be a fatal mistake.
That will conclude this installment of Investor Stories. If you're enjoying the program and would like to see it continue, take a moment and leave a 5-star review in iTunes. Okay, that will wrap things up for today. Until next time, over-prepare, choose carefully, and invest confidently. Thanks for joining me.